trying harder means getting closer to the result. This is the most common belief, and also the most dangerous illusion. It sounds reasonable, it fits mechanical logic, it helped humanity build machines, businesses, and material systems. But when this belief is carried into quantum and manifestation, something breaks. Because the quantum field does not operate like a machine, and reality does not respond to how hard you push. Most people exhausted by manifestation are not failing because they are lazy. They are burning out because they are too disciplined, too serious, too committed to doing it right. And that very effort is what blocks what they want. When you believe that more effort equals faster results, you quietly place yourself in a very specific internal state. A state of not yet, not enough, still lacking. Every action taken from this state carries hidden tension. Even if you smile, even if you speak positively, your nervous system knows the truth. The quantum field does not read words. It reads state, and the state of trying always contains a silent message that the present moment is insufficient, that now is not safe enough, that something must happen before you can relax. When this message is broadcast day after day, the field does not hear your desire. It hears lack. This is where mechanical thinking sabotages quantum understanding. Mechanical thinking says, if there is no result, you have not done enough. You have not believed enough, visualized enough, repeated enough. So people turn inward and blame themselves. They refine techniques, increase effort, force positivity, push belief harder. What they do not see is that every push sends the same signal again, a signal of instability, of insecurity, of mistrust in the present moment, and the quantum field simply mirrors that signal back. There is no punishment. There is no rejection, only precise reflection. The more you try from the wrong layer, the more you reinforce the belief that you are lacking. When results do not arrive, the loop of self-blame begins. Something is wrong with me. I am not spiritual enough, not aligned enough, not pure enough. This is the true source of spiritual exhaustion. Not because you are doing it wrong, but because you are using the wrong operating system. The quantum field does not require more effort. It requires internal coherence. One person may do very little, but their state is grounded, calm, and non-urgent. The field responds quickly to that state. Another person may do everything right, think constantly, visualize perfectly, yet live in the feeling of almost there. Just one more step. The field responds with delay. The issue is not action. The issue is the layer action comes from action born from lack amplifies lack. Action born from stability opens flow. This is why people often say that when they stop trying, things arrived. Not because the universe rewards indifference, but because letting go dropped. Nervous system tension, the baseline signal changed, and the field responded to a new state. This truth is uncomfortable because it contradicts the morality of effort we were taught. But the quantum field does not operate on morality, it operates on frequency. You are not blocked because you did not try hard enough. You are blocked because you are trying from the wrong layer of awareness. That layer is always oriented toward the future for safety, believing peace will come after something happens. But the field does not open to those running forward. It opens to those who are already stable where they stand. When this lands, you stop forcing positivity. You stop forcing belief. You stop forcing manifestation techniques. You return to something simpler. Is my current state regulated? Is my body safe? Am I living like someone ready to receive? This is not an invitation to give up. It is an invitation to shift layers. You have never lacked effort. You have been applying effort at the wrong level. And when you stop at the correct point without adding anything, the quantum field knows exactly how to open the path. The quantum field does not read what you do. It reads the state you do it from. This is the mistake almost everyone makes. They look at action on the surface and assume results come from repetition, discipline, or intensity. If two people take the same action, they expect the same outcome. But quantum reality never works that way, because action is not the signal, state is. Two people can wake up at the same hour meditate for the same duration, speak the same affirmations, visualize the same outcome. From the outside, their behavior looks identical, but one experiences movement in life while the other feels stuck. Not because one is more gifted, not because one is chosen, but because their internal state is different. The quantum field responds to coherence, not effort. Coherence means your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, and sense of self are aligned into one stable signal. Effort often does the opposite. Effort fragments the signal. It creates internal contradiction. A person says they believe, but their body is tense. They say they trust, but their mind is scanning for proof. They say they are ready, but their nervous system is preparing for disappointment. The field does not negotiate with words. It mirrors the dominant signal. This is why action alone is meaningless in quantum terms. Action is just the carrier wave. The real information is embedded underneath, and that information is your baseline state. If your baseline state is urgency, the field reflects delay. If your baseline state is lack, the field reflects scarcity. If your baseline state is calm readiness, the field reflects opportunity. This is not philosophy, it is observable. Look at people who seem to attract outcomes with minimal effort. They are often misunderstood. Others assume they are lucky or gifted. But if you observe closely, you will see something consistent. They are not internally arguing with reality. They are not trying to convince themselves of worthiness. They are not forcing belief. Their inner world is relatively quiet. Their system is coherent. Meanwhile, people who try the hardest often live in constant inner negotiation. Am I doing this right? Should I do more? Why has it not happened yet? Each question adds noise. Each doubt fractures coherence. And the field responds to noise with distortion. Quantum mechanics at the physical level already shows this principle. The observer effect demonstrates that measurement alters outcome, not because the observer touches the system physically, but because observation introduces interference. In human terms, effort driven by monitoring creates the same interference. You do not block the field by doing nothing. You block it by doing too much from the wrong state. This is where most manifestation teachings quietly fail. They focus on techniques, on actions, on steps, but they ignore the deeper layer, the state from which those steps emerge. So people perform the rituals while remaining internally misaligned. They repeat actions that once worked for someone else without realizing that the power was never in the action itself. The power was in the coherence of the person performing it. Coherence feels like this. You are not rushing the future. You are not bargaining with reality. You are not checking constantly to see if it worked. There is a sense of grounded presence, a quiet assumption that things move when they are supposed to. Not blind faith, but stable orientation. Effort-driven manifestation often lacks this. It feels tense, heavy, performative. The body is involved, but not settled. The mind is active, but not clear. The emotional field is hopeful, but fragile. This creates a mixed signal, and mixed signals produce inconsistent results. The field does not punish mixed signals. It reflects them. This is why doing more often creates less. Each added effort, when coming from insecurity, amplifies the very state that blocks flow. People believe they are pushing toward alignment. In reality, they are reinforcing misalignment. Coherence does not require intensity. It requires honesty. Honesty about your current state, about whether you feel safe now, about whether you trust your present ground, about whether your actions come from wholeness or compensation. When action comes from wholeness, it feels clean. There is no emotional residue. You act and move on. You do not cling. You do not replay. You do not demand reassurance. The field reads this as stability. When action comes from compensation, it feels sticky. You think about it afterward. You watch for results. You adjust. You correct. You try again. The field reads this as instability. Same action, different signal. This is the part most people resist because it removes the illusion of control. It means you cannot force the field through volume. You cannot overwhelm reality with repetition. You cannot convince the universe by trying harder. You can only stabilize the signal you are already sending. This does not mean passivity. It means precision. It means choosing actions that do not fragment you. It means knowing when to stop. It means understanding that silence can be more coherent than affirmation. That rest can be more aligned than visualization. That presence can be more powerful than planning. The quantum field is always responding, always. If nothing seems to change, it is not ignoring you. It is answering the signal you are broadcasting consistently. And that signal is not what you want. It is what you are being. This is the shift. Stop asking what you should do next. Start noticing the state you are living from now. Because the field does not respond to future intentions. It responds to present coherence. Field always responds. It just responds to who you are being. Trying harder does not signal strength. It signals instability. This is the part almost no one wants to look at. Because effort has been praised our entire lives. We were taught that pushing is virtuous, that tension means commitment, that pressure means progress. But at the level where the quantum field responds, trying harder carries a very specific message. It says something is not safe yet. The moment you try harder, your nervous system shifts, subtly, quietly, often without conscious awareness. The body tightens, attention narrows, the mind begins scanning. Is this working? Am I doing it right? When will it happen? These questions do not come from confidence. They come from a system that does not feel settled. An unsettled system is an unsafe system, and an unsafe system always broadcasts lack. Lack is not an emotion. It is a baseline orientation. It is the sense that something essential is missing right now, that the present moment is incomplete, that relief exists somewhere else in the future. When you act from this orientation, every effort carries interference. This is the mechanism most people misunderstand. Trying harder is not neutral. It is a signal. The brain evolved to prioritize survival, not manifestation. When it senses uncertainty, it activates protective circuits. These circuits are useful when facing danger, but they are disastrous when trying to engage the quantum field, because survival mode fragments coherence. In survival mode, your system cannot hold a stable signal. One part of you wants the outcome. Another part is bracing for disappointment. Another part is monitoring for failure. This internal split creates noise, and noise is the enemy of resonance. The quantum field does not respond to desire. It responds to dominant vibration. If your dominant vibration is effort driven by urgency, the field reflects urgency without resolution. If your dominant vibration is striving born from fear, the field reflects struggle without arrival. This is not cruelty. It is fidelity. The field is precise. This is why people often feel that the harder they try, the further away the result seems. They believe reality is resisting them. In truth, reality is mirroring their internal state with perfect accuracy. Trying harder amplifies the feeling of not having. Each repetition reinforces the belief that the present moment is insufficient, and the brain learns from repetition faster than it learns from intention. So even when you consciously say positive things, your system is being trained into lack. This is how spiritual effort becomes spiritual exhaustion. Not because manifestation does not work, but because it works too well. It reflects exactly what is being transmitted. Lack creates interference. Interference disrupts coherence. And without coherence, the signal collapses. You are no longer broadcasting a clear frequency, you are broadcasting contradiction. This is why techniques fail, not because the technique is wrong, but because the internal state using it is fragmented. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times. If your nervous system is tense, the field reads tension. You can visualize abundance perfectly. If your body is bracing, the field reads fear. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you are resonating with. This truth is uncomfortable because it removes the illusion of control. You cannot outwork lack. You cannot overpower insecurity. You cannot force coherence through repetition. Coherence emerges when safety is restored. Safety does not come from future outcomes. It comes from the present moment being regulated, from the body knowing it is allowed to be here without urgency, from the mind releasing the need to monitor constantly, from identity no longer being tied to whether something happens. When safety returns, effort naturally decreases, not because you give up, but because you no longer need to prove anything. Action becomes lighter, cleaner, more precise, and the signal stabilizes. This is why stillness often precedes movement, why silence often precedes opportunity, why the most significant shifts happen when someone stops trying to force the timeline. The field does not open when you chase it. It opens when you stop vibrating as if something is missing. This does not mean desire disappears. Desire can remain, but it is no longer charged. It no longer carries desperation. It no longer hijacks the nervous system. It becomes a preference, not a demand. And preferences do not distort the signal. The moment you stop trying to compensate for lack, the noise drops, the frequency clears, the system becomes readable, the field can respond cleanly. This is the reversal most people never make. They believe trying harder is commitment, but at the quantum level, trying harder is a confession that you do not feel safe yet, and the field hears that confession every time. You are not blocked because you lack desire. You are blocked because desire has been contaminated by urgency. You are not manifesting what you want. You are manifesting what you are vibrating. And until the vibration changes, the result will not. When you understand this, effort stops being the solution. Regulation becomes the work. Coherence becomes the practice. Safety becomes the foundation. And from that state, manifestation no longer feels like pushing reality uphill. It feels like alignment catching up with itself. Manifestation was never meant to be a control system, but that is exactly what it has become. What began as a way to align inner state with reality has quietly turned into a coping mechanism for fear, a way to manage anxiety, a way to feel less powerless. And most people do not realize when the shift happened. Affirmations are no longer spoken from trust, they are spoken to calm panic. Vision boards are no longer expressions of clarity, they are escapes from an uncomfortable present. Repetition is no longer reinforcement of belief, it is an attempt to drown out doubt. This is not belief, this is psychological defense. The moment manifestation becomes compulsive, it stops being alignment and starts being control. And control is always born from fear. When someone truly trusts a process, they do not monitor it constantly. They do not rehearse it obsessively. They do not repeat instructions to themselves every hour. They move, then they live. But when fear is present, behavior changes. The mind starts managing outcomes. The body stays alert. The system does not rest. Most manifestation practices today are not acts of faith. They are acts of self-regulation under stress. Affirmations become a sedative, a way to soothe a nervous system that does not feel safe in the present moment. The words sound positive, but the energy underneath is fragile. The repetition is not reinforcing confidence, it is suppressing fear. Vision boards become a form of dissociation. Instead of grounding into what is here, attention is pushed forward into fantasy, not because the future is exciting, but because the present feels unbearable. This is not vision, this is avoidance. Repeating phrases over and over is framed as discipline. In reality, it is often resistance. Resistance to uncertainty, resistance to not knowing, resistance to sitting with discomfort. This is how manifestation becomes addictive. The person does not trust reality to move on its own. So they intervene constantly. They tweak, they adjust, they repeat, they check, they analyze signs, they look for confirmation. And each action temporarily reduces anxiety, which reinforces the habit. But temporary relief is not alignment. This cycle is subtle and socially accepted. It is praised as dedication, as commitment, as spiritual work. But underneath, it is driven by the same impulse as any control addiction. The fear that if you stop managing, everything will fall apart. The quantum field does not respond to control. It responds to coherence, and control always fragments coherence. When you are controlling, one part of you is trying to direct reality, another part is watching to see if it worked, another part is preparing for disappointment. This internal split creates contradiction, and contradiction creates noise. The field mirrors noise with instability. This is why people who do the most manifestation work often feel the least settled. They are busy managing outcomes instead of stabilizing their state. They are busy performing belief instead of embodying it. Real belief is quiet. When belief is present, there is no urgency to repeat it. There is no need to convince the body. There is no compulsion to visualize repeatedly. The system already assumes alignment. Psychological defense behaves differently. It is loud. It is repetitive. It needs constant reassurance. It does not trust silence. And this is the truth. Most people resist. Manifestation has become a way to avoid feeling unsafe now. Instead of asking why the present feels intolerable, attention is pushed into technique. Instead of regulating the nervous system, words are layered on top. Instead of grounding into identity, images are projected forward. But the field does not respond to projection. It responds to embodiment. You cannot trick the field with language. You cannot distract it with images. You cannot override it with repetition. It reads what your system is actually doing. And what it often reads is fear disguised as spirituality. This does not mean affirmations are useless. It does not mean vision is wrong. It means the function matters more than the form. If the practice is used to avoid uncertainty, it reinforces instability. If it is used to express coherence, it amplifies alignment. The same action can either stabilize or fragment, depending on the state behind it. Control-based manifestation always collapses eventually, because it is exhausting. The system cannot stay hypervigilant forever, and when fatigue sets in, people blame themselves. They think they failed. They think they did not believe hard enough. In reality, their system was overloaded. This is where spiritual burnout comes from. Not from lack of faith, but from too much control. The irony is that control feels productive. It feels like doing something. It gives the illusion of agency. But true agency in the quantum sense comes from stability, not management. When you stop using manifestation to regulate fear, something shifts. The urge to repeat fades. The need to check disappears. The pressure lifts. And in that space, coherence has room to form. This is uncomfortable at first, because it removes the crutch. It forces you to feel what you were avoiding. Uncertainty, vulnerability, not knowing. But that is where alignment begins. The field does not open to those who manage it. It opens to those who stop interfering. Trust is not built by repetition. It is built by tolerance. Tolerance for not knowing, for not controlling, for letting reality breathe. When manifestation returns to its original function, it stops being a ritual and becomes a reflection, a mirror of who you are being, not a tool to force what you want. This is the line that must be crossed. If your practice is calming fear, it is defense. If it is expressing stability, it is belief. One maintains the illusion of control, the other allows coherence to emerge. And the quantum field always responds to coherence, not because you asked louder, but because you finally stopped trying to manage the answer. The quantum field does not cooperate with someone who is watching it. The moment you begin to monitor outcomes, something subtle but decisive shifts. Attention turns outward. The system tightens. The mind starts tracking progress. Has it happened yet? Is there a sign? Did I do it right? Each check feels small, reasonable, harmless, but together they form a pattern that blocks flow. The more you look for results, the more the process stalls. This is not mystical. It is mechanical at the level of the nervous system. Monitoring activates evaluation. Evaluation activates vigilance. Vigilance signals that something is unresolved, and unresolved states broadcast instability. The quantum field responds to stability. Monitoring dissolves it. Every time you check, you interrupt coherence. You break the circuit. You pull attention out of presence and into anticipation. Anticipation always implies lack. It says, not yet, not now. Something must happen before I can relax. And the field reflects that exact message. People assume they are being attentive. In reality, they are interfering. This is why checking results creates delay, not because reality is teasing you, but because checking reintroduces the very state that blocks completion. The same is true for constantly adjusting technique. The moment you feel the urge to change something, to fix something, to do one more step just in case you are no longer aligned, you are managing uncertainty. And management always fragments the signal. The quantum field does not move while being supervised. It behaves like any natural process that requires surrender. Growth does not happen when it is watched too closely. Healing does not progress under constant inspection. Sleep does not arrive when you keep checking whether you are asleep. No one has ever fallen asleep by monitoring the moment it happens. Sleep arrives when the system lets go of observation, when vigilance drops, when the body stops trying to control the process. Manifestation operates under the same principle. The more you ask when, the longer it takes. The question when is never neutral. It always carries impatience. It always carries expectation. It always implies that the present moment is insufficient. Even when asked softly, it vibrates urgency. Urgency collapses timing. People often believe they are being patient because they are waiting. But waiting while watching is not patience. It is restrained anxiety. And anxiety is readable. The field does not respond to waiting. It responds to settled presence. This is why outcomes often arrive when attention is elsewhere. When someone stops checking, when life fills the foreground again, when identity is no longer tied to whether the thing happens, the system relaxes, coherence returns, and movement becomes possible. This is not coincidence. It is cause and effect. Monitoring keeps the system open. Completion requires closure. And closure cannot happen while attention remains suspended in anticipation. When you watch for results, you keep the circuit unfinished. Checking is a form of mistrust. It says, I do not believe this will move on its own. I need to verify. I need reassurance. I need confirmation. These impulses feel responsible. They feel intelligent. But at the quantum level, they are signals of insecurity. And insecurity always stretches time. The field does not respond to effort. It responds to signal clarity. Every check muddies the signal. Every question adds static. Every attempt to measure progress reintroduces the observer, and the observer alters the outcome. This is not poetic language. It is consistent with how interference works in any resonance system. When a system is allowed to oscillate freely, coherence builds. When it is constantly measured, oscillation collapses. Your life is no different. People often confuse surrender with passivity. They think stopping monitoring means giving up. But surrender is not withdrawal. It is trust in process without surveillance. You still live. You still act. You still choose. But you are no longer hovering over the timeline. You are no longer leaning forward into the future. You are grounded where you are. This grounding is what allows the field to reorganize. The paradox is simple. The more you try to ensure it happens, the less space there is for it to happen. The more you track progress, the less progress you experience. The more you check, the more you reset the process back to not yet. This is why many people feel stuck even when they are doing everything right. They are unknowingly restarting the cycle every day through observation. They plant the seed, then they dig it up to see if it is growing. Again and again, nothing grows under those conditions. The field requires non-interference. Non-interference does not mean neglect. It means allowing momentum to carry itself. It means understanding that coherence has its own timing, and that timing cannot be forced without being disrupted. This is where discipline changes meaning. True discipline is not doing more. It is resisting the urge to check, resisting the urge to manage, resisting the urge to ask when. That restraint is harder than action, but it is far more powerful because it stabilizes the signal. When you stop monitoring, the nervous system settles. When the nervous system settles, the signal clears. When the signal clears, the field responds. Always. Not because you demanded, but because you finally stopped interrupting. The field has never been unresponsive. It has been constantly answering the state you are in. When the state is watching, it answers with delay. When the state is settled, it answers with movement. This is the distinction most people miss. They believe attention creates results. In reality, excessive attention collapses them. Presence allows completion. Observation prolongs process. If you want flow, you must release surveillance. If you want alignment, you must stop checking alignment. If you want the outcome, you must stop leaning into it. No one sleeps by watching sleep arrive. No one manifests by watching manifestation happen. The moment you stop monitoring is the moment the system can close the loop. And when the loop closes, reality moves quietly, without announcement, without signs, without effort. Not because you let go completely, but because you let go enough. Letting go is not magic. It is mechanics. When people say everything arrived once, they stop trying. It is often misunderstood as luck or divine reward. In reality, something very specific happened inside their system. The nervous system stood down, vigilance dropped, and coherence quietly returned. Nothing arrived because they gave up. Things arrived because interference ended. The human nervous system is designed to scan for threat. When something feels unresolved, the system stays alert. Attention leans forward. Muscles hold tension. The mind keeps watch. This state is useful for survival. It is destructive for alignment. Trying harder keeps the system alert. Letting go tells the system there is no emergency. The moment you stop demanding an outcome, your body receives a new signal. It no longer needs to brace. It no longer needs to track. It no longer needs to prepare for disappointment. That shift alone changes everything, because coherence cannot exist in a guarded system. A guarded system sends mixed signals. One part wants, another part fears, another part monitors. These parts compete. The signal fractures. The field reflects fragmentation with delay and inconsistency. When you let go, the competition stops. Letting go does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop insisting. You stop requiring reality to prove itself on your timeline. You stop holding your breath while waiting for confirmation. And when that happens, the nervous system recalibrates. This recalibration is subtle. There is no dramatic moment, no announcement, just a soft settling. Breathing deepens, thoughts slow, attention returns to the present. The body feels less defended. This is what stability feels like. Stability is not excitement. It is quiet confidence without anticipation. And stability is readable. The quantum field responds to readable signals. When coherence returns, the signal becomes clean. There is no urgency layered on top, no demand embedded in desire, no bargaining hidden in intention. The field finally receives a clear transmission. This is why letting go often feels like relief before it feels like progress. Relief is the nervous system releasing control. Progress comes later. As a consequence, most people never let go fully. They stop pushing, but they keep watching. They stop acting, but they keep leaning forward internally. True letting go is not behavioral, it is internal. It is the moment you stop asking reality to hurry. When you demand, you signal lack. When you allow, you signal readiness. Demand always says something is missing now. Allowance says now is sufficient to stand on. The field moves towards sufficiency. This is the paradox. Wanting something does not block it. Needing it to arrive in order to feel safe does. The moment safety returns, coherence is restored. Coherence is not something you create. It is something that emerges when resistance drops, when internal conflict quiets, when the system no longer argues with the present. And this is why stillness is so powerful, not because it is passive, but because it removes interference. Letting go removes three major blocks at once. First, it lowers vigilance. Without vigilance, the nervous system exits survival mode. Without survival mode, the system can stabilize. Second, it collapses internal contradiction. When you stop demanding, Parts of you stop fighting over outcome. Desire becomes simple, clean, undistorted. Third, it restores timing. Urgency distorts time perception. Allowance normalizes it. The field requires natural timing to organize events. This is why forced manifestation feels slow, while surrendered manifestation feels sudden. Time was never the obstacle. Interference was. When coherence returns, reality reorganizes quietly, not always dramatically, often invisibly at first. Conversations shift. Opportunities line up. Decisions feel obvious. Movement resumes. Not because you asked louder, but because you stopped pulling the system out of alignment. This is uncomfortable for people who equate effort with worth. Letting go feels like failure to the conditioned mind. It feels irresponsible, like abandoning control. But control was never what moved things forward. Control creates tension. Tension creates noise. Noise blocks coherence. The field does not reward surrender. It responds to clarity. When you stop insisting, clarity appears. You are no longer transmitting want. You are transmitting readiness. This does not mean desire disappears. Desire remains. But it is no longer sharp, no longer urgent, no longer tied to identity or safety. It becomes a preference, not a requirement. Preferences do not distort signals. Requirements do. This is why many people notice that when they truly let go, they forget about the thing entirely. Life fills the foreground again. Identity expands beyond the outcome. And in that space, the outcome finally has room to arrive. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped gripping. The field cannot enter a clenched system. Letting go opens the hand. And once the hand is open, reception becomes possible. This is not about deserving. It is about availability. A system in demand mode is unavailable. It is occupied, managing tension. A system in allowance mode is available. It has capacity. Capacity invites movement. This is the mechanism behind every story of things arriving unexpectedly. Unexpected does not mean uncaused. It means unmonitored. When you are no longer watching, the process can complete. This is why the final step is never more effort, it is release. Release of urgency, release of monitoring, release of the belief that you must manage reality for it to function. When you stop demanding proof, the field stops withholding reflection. When you stop asking when, timing resumes. When you stop trying to make it happen, coherence takes over. And coherence always moves things forward. The field does not respond to wanting, it responds to being. When you stop demanding, you shift from wanting to being, and that is when the field finally begins to give. Giving up and placing yourself in the correct state are not the same thing, but they are constantly confused. This confusion has caused more stagnation than effort ever did, because when people hear let go, many interpret it as stop caring, stop moving, stop choosing. They confuse calm with collapse, and then they wonder why nothing changes. Giving up is disconnection. Correct state is alignment. When someone gives up, direction disappears, energy drains, will shuts down. There is no inner axis holding the system upright. Life becomes reactive. Decisions are avoided. Responsibility is dropped. This is not peace. This is resignation. The nervous system does not feel safe in this state. It feels defeated. In contrast, placing yourself in the correct state does not remove direction. It removes distortion. There is still intention, still movement, still choice, but there is no gripping, no forcing, no internal pressure to control outcome. The difference is subtle but decisive. Giving up feels heavy. Correct state feels grounded. Giving up is driven by exhaustion. Correct state is driven by clarity. Giving up says nothing matters. Correct state says I am stable enough to let things unfold. This distinction matters because the quantum field does not respond to collapse. It responds to coherence, and coherence requires structure. Structure does not mean rigidity. It means orientation. A person in the correct state lives with an internal axis. They wake up knowing who they are, even when outcomes are uncertain. Their identity is not hanging on results. Their sense of self is not borrowed from the future. They are not drifting, they are standing. Standing does not require pushing. This is where many people misunderstand calm. They assume calm means passive. In reality, calm is controlled power without urgency. It is the absence of internal friction, not the absence of intention. A calm system can move precisely. A frantic system moves blindly. A collapse system does not move at all. Giving up collapses the system. Correct state stabilizes it. This is why surrender is often misused. True surrender is not the abandonment of will. It is the release of interference. You stop fighting reality, but you do not stop living inside it. You still act. You still choose. You still engage. But you do not lean forward internally. You do not chase confirmation. You do not pressure the timeline. This is what it means to live with an axis. An axis is internal consistency. It is knowing what matters without needing immediate proof. It is taking action without attaching your nervous system to the result. It is walking forward without dragging expectation behind you. Giving up removes the axis. Correct state preserves it. This is why giving up feels numb, while correct state feels clear. Numbness is a defense against disappointment. Clarity is confidence without demand. Confidence does not rush. Confidence does not explain itself. Confidence does not monitor outcomes. It simply acts from alignment. People who are truly aligned are often mistaken for passive. But watch closely. Their actions are deliberate. They do not scatter energy. They do not overcorrect. They do not flood reality with effort. They choose cleanly and move on. This is not indifference. This is trust at a deeper layer. Trust is not emotional excitement. It is stability under uncertainty. When trust is present, there is no need to grip. When grip disappears, coherence forms. When coherence forms, the field can respond. Giving up never creates coherence. It creates fragmentation. One part wants to stop feeling pain. Another part still wants the outcome. These parts conflict. The signal remains distorted. Correct state resolves this conflict. It allows desire to exist without urgency. It allows uncertainty without panic. It allows movement without attachment. This balance is rare because it requires maturity. It requires the ability to tolerate not knowing without collapsing, to continue living without leaning on guarantees. Most people either push too hard or disengage completely. Both extremes block alignment. The correct state lives in between, not forcing, not withdrawing, standing centered. This is why calm people often appear slower but move further. Their energy is not wasted fighting reality. Their system is not leaking attention into worry or fantasy. They are present. Presence is not inactivity. It is readiness without tension. When you are present, you respond instead of react. You choose instead of chase. You act instead of perform. The field reads this as coherence. The quantum field does not cooperate with collapse. It cooperates with stability. Giving up tells the field, there is no signal. Correct state tells the field the signal is clean. This is why so many breakthroughs happen after someone stops pushing but does not stop living. They keep their routines. They keep their values. They keep their direction. But they release the emotional charge attached to outcome. The moment charge drops, interference ends. This is what true letting go looks like. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, almost invisible from the outside. But internally, the system feels anchored. Anchored systems do not drift. They attract alignment naturally. Calm is often mistaken for weakness. But calm is the strongest position in a quantum system because it does not distort the signal. It does not fracture attention. It does not demand compensation. Calm allows reality to meet you halfway. Giving up removes effort but keeps fear. Correct state removes fear but keeps direction. That is the difference. One collapses momentum, the other restores it. And this is the final correction many people must make. Stop oscillating between forcing and quitting. Learn to stand without gripping. Learn to move without urgency. Learn to trust without withdrawing. Calm is not quitting. It is confidence at a deeper layer. When you live from that layer, the field does not need to be chased. It recognizes the signal immediately because you are no longer asking for permission. You are simply available, and availability is what alignment has been waiting for. People who manifest do not do more. They interfere less. This truth contradicts almost everything people are taught about progress. Most assume results come from intensity, repetition, and visible effort. But when you observe those who consistently experience alignment, a different pattern appears. Their lives are quieter internally. Their actions are fewer, cleaner, and more decisive. They are not busy managing reality. They create less noise. Noise is not action. Noise is interpretation layered on top of action. The moment you begin overthinking, explaining, justifying, or proving, noise enters the system. And noise distorts signal. People who struggle with manifestation are not inactive. They are overloaded. They are constantly interpreting signs, scanning for meaning, correcting their inner dialogue, and adjusting their behavior. Each adjustment seems small, but together they fragment coherence. Those who manifest do something radically different. They stop narrating their experience. They do not ask what this means every time something happens. They do not analyze delays. They do not build stories around temporary setbacks. They allow events to be events, not symbols that require decoding. This alone removes enormous interference. The less you interpret, the more stable your state becomes. Stability creates coherence. Coherence invites response. People who manifest also do not try to prove anything, not to others, not to the universe, not to themselves. The need to prove is always a sign of internal doubt. When you are certain, at a deep level, there is no urge to explain, no urge to justify, no urge to demonstrate belief through behavior. Proof-seeking creates tension. It turns action into performance. It turns belief into display. It turns life into an argument you are trying to win. Quantum systems do not respond to arguments. They respond to resonance. Resonance does not require explanation. This is why those aligned often appear indifferent to validation. They are not emotionally invested in convincing anyone. Their identity is not built on being right or being seen as spiritual or successful. They do not need confirmation. And because they do not need confirmation, they do not leak energy trying to obtain it. This is another form of noise reduction. Self-persuasion is the final layer that disappears. People who struggle spend enormous energy trying to convince themselves. They repeat phrases to override doubt. They push optimism to suppress fear. They argue internally about whether something will work. Aligned individuals do not do this, not because they are fearless, but because they do not debate reality internally. Debate implies two opposing positions inside the system. One part hopes, another part doubts. This internal conflict generates interference. The signal becomes unstable. Those who manifest have resolved this conflict at a deeper layer. They may still experience uncertainty, but they do not fight it. They do not try to eliminate doubt through force. They allow doubt to exist without granting it control. This neutrality is powerful. When you stop persuading yourself, something unexpected happens. The nervous system relaxes. The mind stops spinning. Attention returns to the present moment. Coherence quietly reassembles. This is not apathy. It is internal agreement. Internal agreement does not mean certainty about outcomes. It means there is no internal war. The system is not split into wanting and resisting at the same time. Split systems cannot hold a stable signal. People often think manifesting requires stronger belief. In reality, it requires fewer contradictions. Belief does not need to be loud. It needs to be unchallenged internally. When belief is challenged, people respond by adding effort, more affirmations, more visualization, more checking, more explaining. But each addition increases noise. Those who manifest remove layers instead of adding them. They simplify. They trust their baseline state enough to stop interfering with it. They do not embellish it with constant intention setting. They do not pressure it with expectation. They let it stand. This standing is confidence at a quiet level. It is not excitement. It is not motivation. It is stability without self-surveillance. This is why aligned people often appear slower but experience faster results. Their system is not overloaded. Their signals not distorted. Their actions carry clarity instead of compensation. They are not trying to deserve outcomes. They are not trying to earn alignment. They are not trying to prove readiness. They already live as if readiness is assumed. Quantum opens to that assumption. When you do less internally, you create space externally. When noise drops, coherence becomes readable. When coherence is readable, response becomes natural. This is why doing more often delays manifestation. It is not the action that delays. It is the commentary around it. The second guessing, the internal narration, the constant checking. Aligned people act and move on. They make a choice, then return to living. They do not replay the decision. They do not monitor its effects. They trust momentum. Trust here is not emotional trust. It is structural trust. Trust that the system does not need constant supervision. This is the turning point most never reach. They think alignment is something they must maintain actively. In truth, alignment maintains itself when not disrupted. Quantum coherence is fragile. It collapses under observation, interpretation, and persuasion. It stabilizes under simplicity. This is why silence is powerful. This is why stillness works. This is why presence outperforms planning. The less you need to convince, the clearer your signal becomes. The less you explain, the more coherent you feel. The less you interpret, the more reality organizes itself. Quantum opens to those who do not need to persuade anyone, including themselves, because persuasion implies doubt. And doubt, when unmanaged, creates noise. When noise fades, alignment does not need to be chased. It becomes the default state. From that state, manifestation stops feeling like an achievement. It feels like the natural consequence of not getting in the way. There is a state that looks like progress but quietly blocks everything. Most people live in it without realizing. It feels hopeful. It feels active. It feels responsible. And that is why it is dangerous. You always feel like it is about to happen. This feeling is addictive. It keeps you engaged. It gives you a sense of momentum without arrival. Every day feels like preparation. Almost there. Just one more adjustment. Just one more alignment. But almost is not arrival. When you constantly feel close, your system never settles. It stays leaning forward. Leaning forward is not movement. It is suspension. Suspension is readable. The quantum field does not respond to almost. It responds to completion. Living in the state of almost creates a loop. The nervous system remains alert. The mind stays focused on future resolution. The body never lands. And without landing, reception cannot occur. This is the first sign you are blocking the field without knowing it. The second sign is constant technique adjustment. You switch methods, refine affirmations, change routines, modify timing, add layers, remove layers. Everything is framed as optimization, but optimization is often avoidance. Each adjustment implies something was wrong before, something was missing, something was misaligned, and that implication becomes the dominant signal. When you believe the problem is technique, you never look at state. Technique feels safer than stillness. It gives you something to do, something to fix, something to blame, but the field does not respond to method, it responds to coherence. Changing technique while remaining internally unstable changes nothing. It only reinforces the belief that alignment is fragile, that one wrong move will break everything, that you must constantly monitor and correct yourself. This belief alone creates interference. The third sign is constantly asking, what am I doing wrong? This question feels honest, humble, responsible, but it hides an assumption that is fatal to alignment. It assumes there is a mistake that must be corrected before reception is allowed. So the system stays in diagnostic mode, scanning for errors, analyzing emotions, reviewing thoughts, evaluating reactions. Life becomes a continuous self-audit. The self-audit keeps the nervous system activated. Activated systems cannot receive. Reception requires openness. Openness requires safety. Safety requires the absence of constant self-evaluation. This is why people who are always self-correcting never arrive. They are busy proving readiness instead of being ready. The field does not wait for perfection. It waits for stability. These three signs always appear together. Feeling almost there. Adjusting technique. Searching for error. Together, they create a permanent preparation state. Preparation feels productive, but preparation without arrival becomes identity. You become someone who is always getting ready, and readiness never completes. The paradox is simple. The more you prepare, the less you receive, because preparation implies not yet. Not yet is a frequency. The field mirrors frequency. This is why people can prepare for years without movement. They are not blocked by external forces. They are blocked by internal orientation. They are living in anticipation instead of presence. Anticipation stretches time. Presence collapses it. This does not mean you should stop learning or refining. It means learning must come from curiosity, not fear. Refinement must come from clarity, not anxiety. When refinement is driven by anxiety, it never ends. There is always one more thing to fix. This is why people burn out spiritually. They are always improving but never resting, always aligning but never arriving. Arrival requires closure. Closure happens when you stop looking for what is missing. The moment you stop asking what is wrong, the system stabilizes. The moment you stop adjusting, coherence has space to form. The moment you stop leaning forward, the present becomes inhabitable. And only an inhabitable present can receive. This is why many breakthroughs happen after people abandon preparation entirely. They stop reading, stop tweaking, stop fixing, not because they lost interest, but because they reached a point of saturation. Saturation forces stillness. Stillness reveals state, and state is what the field responds to. If you are always preparing, you are always delaying. If you are always fixing, you are always implying lack. If you are always analyzing, you are always interfering. This is the message hidden inside these signs. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not missing a step. You are simply stuck in readiness mode. Readiness mode never receives. Receiving requires finality. It requires the system to stop holding itself in standby. It requires the body to settle into now without expecting a test. The field does not reward effort. It does not punish mistakes. It responds to state. If the state is preparation, the response is delay. If the state is arrival, the response is movement. Arrival is not something you wait for. It is something you enter. You enter it when you stop adjusting yourself to be worthy. When you stop treating alignment as fragile. When you stop assuming something must change before life can move. The field does not ask, "Are you ready yet?" It asks, "Are you here?" If you are always preparing, you are never here. And if you are never here, there is nothing to receive. This is the quiet truth behind why so many people feel close but never arrive. They are standing at the door, but they never stop knocking long enough to open it. If you want reception, stop rehearsing readiness. If you want arrival, stop living in almost, because the moment you step out of preparation, the field no longer needs to wait. It can finally respond. The field does not need more effort from you. It needs internal consistency. This is a conclusion most people arrive at only after exhaustion, after trying everything, after refining techniques, after adjusting mindset again and again. They finally realize that nothing changed because the core signal never changed. Effort was never the missing piece. Consistency was. Internal consistency means your thoughts, emotions, body, and identity are no longer pulling in different directions. It means there is no hidden argument inside you, no part pushing forward while another part braces for disappointment. no part wanting while another part resists. The field responds to one thing only. A clear signal is not loud, it is stable. Most people confuse intensity with clarity. They believe feeling more strongly will move reality faster. But intensity without coherence only creates fluctuation, and fluctuation stretches time. Consistency collapses time. Internal consistency feels almost boring to the conditioned mind. There is no drama, no emotional spike, no constant checking, no internal speeches, just a quiet alignment between what you think, what you feel, and how you live. This is why it is so rare. People are trained to perform alignment rather than embody it. They act aligned while internally negotiating. They speak confidence while internally doubting. They visualize success while internally preparing for failure. The field does not read performance. It reads agreement. Agreement is when the system stops contradicting itself. When agreement is present, action becomes simple. You do not need to motivate yourself. You do not need to discipline yourself. You do not need to force belief. You do what feels correct and move on. Moving on is a sign of consistency. Inconsistent systems linger. They replay, they review, they question, they self-correct endlessly. Consistent systems act once and release. Release is not indifference, it is resolution. This is why manifestation does not arrive when you become better at techniques. It arrives when you stop creating internal resistance. Resistance is not negativity. Resistance is misalignment between parts of you. You can want something sincerely and still resist it unconsciously. The resistance shows up as urgency, as monitoring, as impatience, as the feeling that something must happen soon or else. Soon is resistance. Now is consistency. When your internal state accepts the present without negotiation, something locks into place. Identity stops leaning forward. Safety stops depending on outcome. Attention returns to what is here. This is when the field can respond. The field does not move when you chase it. It moves when you stop pulling against it. Pulling against it does not feel like opposition. It feels like effort, like preparation, like trying to be ready. But readiness that never settles is still resistance. Internal consistency settles. Settling does not mean stagnation. It means your system stops oscillating. The signal becomes continuous instead of pulsed. Continuous signals travel further. This is why people who are internally settled often experience sudden shifts, not because something new appeared, but because resistance stopped cancelling the signal. The field does not need you to be skilled. It needs you to be aligned. Alignment is not perfection. It is congruence. It is when what you say, what you feel, and what you expect are no longer in conflict. This is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. You cannot blame timing. You cannot blame technique. You cannot blame the universe. You must look at the internal split. And when that split closes, effort becomes unnecessary. This is the final misunderstanding of manifestation. People think they are trying to make something happen. In reality, they are trying to overcome themselves. The moment you stop fighting yourself, the field stops resisting you. Consistency does not require force. It requires honesty. Honesty about where you are, about what you feel, about what you are no longer willing to pretend. When you stop pretending alignment and allow actual alignment to form, everything simplifies. You no longer ask when. You no longer adjust constantly. You no longer prepare endlessly. You live. Living from consistency means your nervous system trusts your direction. Your mind is not scanning for proof. Your body is not bracing for impact. You are not waiting for permission to relax. Relaxation is not a reward. It is a prerequisite. The field does not open to effortful minds. It opens to settled systems. Systems that are not trying to escape the present. Systems that are not demanding guarantees. Systems that are not negotiating worthiness. This is why manifestation arrives quietly, often unnoticed at first, because there is no drama left to amplify it. When consistency is present, arrival feels natural, almost obvious, not exciting, not miraculous, just right. This disappoints people who want fireworks, but it satisfies those who want truth. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to reach a higher state. You do not need to master the process. You need to stop fragmenting yourself. Fragmentation blocks flow. Consistency restores it. This is why the final step is not more effort. It is less contradiction. When your inner world stops arguing, the outer world stops delaying. There is no promise here, no guarantee, no timeline, only a principle. Manifestation does not arrive when you are skilled enough. It arrives when you are calm enough to stop resisting it. Not because you deserve it, but because there is nothing left blocking the signal. And when nothing blocks the signal, the field does what it has always done. It responds